She was just a broke piano student desperate for rent money. One whispered melody to a blind child no one dared approach, and suddenly, she was inside the most dangerous family in Chicago. The Mafia boss made it clear: help his son speak again or disappear. Clara's hands trembled as she adjusted the microphone near the grand piano. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not tonight. Not her first night. "You're the replacement?" The manager's voice cut through her panic. "The regular guy called in sick. You better be good." She wasn't good. She was adequate. Barely. But her tuition was due in 3 days, and this single performance paid more than 2 weeks at the coffee shop. Rossi's restaurant didn't look like the kind of place where people got killed. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. White tablecloths. Silver cutlery that probably cost more than her rent. But Clara had heard the stories. Everyone in Chicago knew Antonio Rossi's name, even if they pretended not to. She sat at the piano bench, the leather cold beneath her thrift store dress. Her professor's words echoed in her mind. "When you're nervous, find one person in the crowd. Play for them. Only them." Clara scanned the room as her fingers found the opening notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune, businessmen in expensive suits. Women dripping in diamonds. And then a child. A small boy, maybe 10 or 11, sitting perfectly still at the center table. Dark sunglasses hid his eyes despite the dim restaurant lighting. His small hands rested flat on the white tablecloth, and he didn't move. Not even to fidget the way children usually did. Beside him sat a man who could only be Antonio Rossi. Silver temples. Sharp jawline. The kind of stillness that came from absolute power. He cut his steak with surgical precision, occasionally glancing at the boy, who never reached for his own untouched plate. The child's suit looked expensive but slightly too large, like he'd been dressed by adults who couldn't quite get the proportions right. No one spoke to the boy. Not the servers who refilled Antonio's wine. Not the associates who approached the table with nervous smiles. They looked at him, quick, darting glances, then looked away, as if staring too long might invoke something terrible. Some looked at the small child with pity, others with discomfort. Clara's fingers stumbled on a chord. The boy's head tilted slightly. Just slightly. She recovered, pushing into the next movement. That's when she noticed it. The boy's fingers. They were moving. Tapping. Not randomly. In perfect rhythm. He was following her tempo, anticipating the crescendos before they came, his small fingers drumming precisely against the tablecloth. He knew this piece. A child that young shouldn't know Debussy like this. The realization made her bolder. She leaned into the music, adding subtle dynamics her professor would have praised. The boy's fingers moved faster, more confidently, his entire focus on the invisible music only he could see in his mind. For the first time all night, Clara forgot about the tuition. The fear. The men with guns probably hidden under their jackets. She played for him. Only him. For the small boy who sat alone in a crowded room. When the final note faded, polite applause rippled through the restaurant. Antonio Rossi nodded once, the closest thing to approval she'd get. Clara stood, smoothing her dress, ready to slip away to collect her payment and vanish into the safety of her cramped apartment. But she couldn't stop looking at the boy. He sat frozen again, hands still, head slightly bowed. The invisible wall had rebuilt itself. Whatever moment they'd shared through the music had evaporated. He looked so small, so alone. Clara didn't think. She just moved. She walked past the table, slow enough that it wouldn't draw attention. As she passed behind the boy's chair, she leaned in, barely, just inches from his ear, and whispered the opening melody of Brahms' lullaby, not the words. Just the tune. 5 notes. Soft as breath. The kind of lullaby a mother sings to her child at bedtime. The boy's entire body went rigid. His lips parted. And then, so quietly that only Clara could hear, he hummed the next line. Perfect pitch. Perfect timing. His small voice fragile but certain. The melody his mother must have sung to him 1,000 nights. Clara's heart hammered. She kept walking, fighting the urge to run. Stop. The voice was cold. Absolute. Antonio Rossi's voice. Clara froze 3 steps from the exit. The restaurant went silent. Even the kitchen noise seemed to die. She turned slowly. Antonio was staring at her. Not with anger. With something else. Something she couldn't read. Shock, maybe. Or hope. You, he said, gesturing with 2 fingers. Come here. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But her legs carried her back to the table. Up close, she could see the boy more clearly. His dark hair was neatly combed. His clothes expensive, but chosen by someone else. There was a small scar above his left eyebrow, almost hidden by the sunglasses. He couldn't have been more than 11 years old. What did you say to my son? Antonio's words were measured. Dangerous. Clara's mouth went dry. Just a melody. That's all. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. He responded to you. Antonio leaned back, studying her like she was a puzzle. No one's reached him in 2 years. Not the doctors. Not the therapists. No 1 inch. The boy, Luca, she realized his name must be Luca Rossi, sat perfectly still. But his fingers were tapping again. The same 5 notes. Over and over. His small hand barely spanning 3 keys. What's your name? Antonio asked. Clara. Clara Martinez. Clara, he tasted the name. You play piano. You're a student. Yes. At the conservatory. Antonio pulled out his phone, typed something, then looked at her again. How much are they paying you tonight? $500. I'll pay you $2,000. Every session. Twice a week. You come to my house. You play for him, he nodded toward Luca. Just like tonight. Help him come back to us. Clara's mind raced. $2,000. Twice a week. That was more than she made in a month. That was her tuition. Her rent. Her life. But this child, this was Antonio Rossi's son. I don't know if I can. You can, it wasn't a question. Antonio stood, buttoning his jacket. He placed a hand on Luca's small shoulder. Gentle, the only soft gesture Clara had seen from him. Come, son. Luca stood with practiced precision, one small hand finding his father's arm. He barely reached his father's chest. As they walked toward the private exit, Luca's head turned slightly. Toward Clara. Behind the dark glasses, she felt him seeing her. Really seeing her. Then they were gone. The manager appeared with an envelope. Mr. Rossi said this is for tonight. Plus a bonus. Clara opened it. $3,000. Cash. A small card fell out. Handwritten in sharp script. He's my blood. You hurt him, even by accident, and you disappear. Understand? Clara's hands shook as she pocketed the money. She'd just made a deal with the devil. And somewhere in the back of Antonio Rossi's car, a small blind boy was humming a lullaby he hadn't sung in 2 years. Tuesday came too fast. Clara had spent 2 days convincing herself to back out. She'd researched Antonio Rossi online, finding nothing but restaurant reviews and charity donations. The dangerous stuff didn't live on Google. It lived in whispered warnings from her roommate. Are you insane? The Rossis don't hire people. They own them. But she'd already spent $800 on tuition. The money was gone. And turning down Antonio Rossi felt more dangerous than showing up. The black Mercedes arrived at exactly 8 p.m. The driver didn't speak. Didn't even look at her. Just opened the door and waited. The drive took 40 minutes, leaving the city lights behind for sprawling estates hidden behind iron gates. When they finally stopped, Clara expected the mansion. Instead, they'd returned to Rossi's restaurant. The dining room was empty except for one table. Antonio sat alone, reading something on his tablet. Luca was nowhere in sight. Sit, Antonio said without looking up. Clara, Saturday. You told your roommate about our arrangement. It wasn't a question. Clara's blood ran cold. I just said I had a tutoring job. Nothing specific. Hannah Chun. Nursing student. Works at County General on weekends. Dates a med student named Marcus. Antonio finally looked up. I know everything about you, Clara. Where you buy coffee. That you're $3,000 behind on student loans. That your mother calls every Sunday at 9 a.m. The message was clear. I can reach anyone you love. I won't tell anyone else, Clara whispered. I know. Antonio closed the tablet. Because you're smart. Scared but smart. That's why you're still here. He poured 2 glasses of wine. My son hasn't spoken more than 10 words in 2 years. Hasn't touched the piano since his mother died. The therapist said he's retreated somewhere we can't reach. Said to give him time. Antonio's jaw tightened. 2 years is enough time. What happened to him? Clara asked, then immediately regretted it. But Antonio didn't seem angry. Just tired.
Car bomb.
Meant for me. My wife died instantly. Luca survived but lost his sight from the blast. He was 9 years old.
A piano prodigi.
Already playing pieces meant for teenagers. He took a long drink. You know what's worse than losing your sight? Losing the one person who made you want to see anything at all. Clara's throat tightened. I'm sorry. I don't need sorry. I need him back. Antonio leaned forward. When you whispered that melody, his mother used to sing it every night before bed. I haven't heard him hum it since the funeral. You did something in 5 seconds that $100,000 in therapy couldn't do. He slid a contract across the table. Twice a week. You play piano in our home.
You talk to him.
Music only, no therapy, no pushing. If he responds, you continue. If he progresses, your payment increases. If he gets worse, Antonio, let the silence finish the threat.
Clara picked up the contract.
The pay was listed for $1,000 per week. Her hands shook. What if I can't help him? He's just a child. What if? Then you tried. But Clara, Antonio's voice dropped. If I find out you're working for the Salvatores, the Chens, or anyone else interested in my family, they won't find enough of you to bury. I'm not working for anyone. I just play piano. Good, he stood, buttoning his jacket. The car will bring you Thursday. 8 p.m. Luca will be waiting. As Antonio walked toward the exit, Clara found her voice. Why did you bring me here instead of your house? He paused. Because if you ran, I needed to know now. Saves everyone time. He glanced back with something almost like respect. But you didn't run. You walked through that door knowing exactly who I am. That takes either courage or desperation. Which do you think it is? Antonio smiled, cold and sharp. With you?
Both.
That's what makes you right for my son. He needs someone brave enough to stay. The door closed behind him, and Clara was alone with a contract that felt like a noose and a lifeline at the same time. She signed it. The same silent driver took her home. As Clara climbed the stairs to her apartment, she noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Different car. Same watching presence. Inside, Hannah was studying on the couch. She looked up. How was tutoring? Clara thought about the contract in her bag. The threat. The money. The blind child who hadn't spoken in 2 years. Complicated, she said. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Thursday. Don't forget. He's waiting. Clara deleted the message, but she'd already memorized every word. Somewhere in a mansion she hadn't seen yet, a small boy sat in silence, perhaps wondering if the girl who whispered his mother's song would come back. She would. She had no choice now. But somewhere deeper, beneath the fear and the money and the danger, Clara realized something else.
She wanted to.
A child needed her, and that meant something. The Rossi mansion looked like a fortress disguised as a home. Iron gates, security cameras every 10 feet, men in dark suits positioned at corners with the kind of stillness that came from military training. Clara counted 4 just from the driveway. Inside was worse. Grand, yes, marble floors, paintings that belonged in museums, a double staircase that curved like something from a movie, but sterile. No family photos.
No toys.
Nothing that suggested a child lived here. A woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled tight, met Clara at the door.
I'm Mafia.
Housekeeper.
Follow me.
They walked through hallways that echoed with emptiness. Maria didn't make small talk.
Didn't explain.
Just led Clara to a room at the mansion's east wing. The music room. A Steinway grand piano sat in the center, polished to perfection. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens that looked maintained, but unused. And in the corner, in a chair far too large for him, sat Luca. He wore the same dark glasses. Different clothes, expensive casual, probably chosen by Maria. His small frame looked lost in the leather armchair, his feet not quite reaching the floor. His hands rested on his knees, perfectly still. He didn't acknowledge Clara's entrance. "He's been sitting there for an hour," Maria whispered, and Clara heard genuine concern in her voice. "Won't move.
Won't speak.
I'll be in the kitchen if you need anything." Then Clara was alone with him. She approached slowly, her footsteps deliberate on the hardwood. Luca's head tilted slightly, tracking her movement by sound.
Luca. I'm Clara.
From the restaurant, nothing. His small face remained expressionless. "I'm going to play something. You don't have to do anything. Just listen if you want." She sat at the piano, letting her fingers rest on the keys. What did you play for a traumatized child trapped in silence? Something loud felt wrong. Something sad felt cruel. She chose Satie's Gymnopédie No. 1 simple.
Haunting.
Space between the notes. Luca didn't move. Clara played the piece, through once. Then again, this time adding small variations, hesitations where the melody asked questions. She wasn't performing. She was speaking. On the third repetition, she heard it.
A breath. Different from the others.
Luca had sighed in time with the phrase. Clara kept playing, but shifted to something more rhythmic. Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the kind of piece that made you want to move. Luca's small fingers twitched.
She didn't stop. Didn't acknowledge it.
Just continued, letting the music fill the room like water finding cracks in stone. By the fourth song, Inaudi's Nouvelle Bianca, Luca had turned his chair. Just slightly. Enough to face the direction of the piano. Clara took a risk. She stopped mid-phrase and whispered the next 4 notes instead of playing them. Silence. Then Luca's fingers tapped the rhythm against his knee.
Once. Twice.
His small hand barely making a sound.
Clara vispera da another frase, dada dunda like a question.
Luca tapped back. Dum-da-da-dum. An answer. Her heart raced. She played the phrase on the piano, exactly as he'd tapped it. For the first time, Luca's lips moved. Not into a smile. Something smaller. Recognition, maybe. Or surprise that someone understood. "You hear it, don't you?" Clara said softly. The conversation and the music. Luca didn't respond with words. But slowly, so slowly she almost missed it, he stood. His small hand reached out, finding the wall, then sliding along it until he found the piano's edge. He was so careful, every movement memorized. Clara stayed frozen, barely breathing. Luca's fingers touched the piano's surface. He traced the wood grain, the curve of the lid, the music stand. Then his hand hovered over the keys. His fingers were so small. A child's hands that once created magic. He didn't press any, just held his hand there, trembling. "It's okay," Clara whispered. "You don't have to play. But it's here when you're ready." Luca's hand dropped. He turned away, walking carefully back to his chair, movements memorized from repetition. But something had changed. The air felt different. Less empty. Clara played one more piece, the Brahms lullaby from the restaurant. When she finished, she stood quietly. "I'll come back Thursday," she said. "Same time. If you want." She was halfway to the door when Luca spoke. His voice was small, rough from disuse, barely above a whisper. "My mama played that." Clara froze. "I know. She played it wrong. Always rushed the third measure." Despite everything, the tension, the fear, the strangeness, Clara smiled. Even grieving, even blind, he was still a perfectionist. Still a musician. Did you correct her? The smallest pause. Then, and Clara could hear the ghost of a memory in his voice. Every time, she laughed. When Clara left, she found Antonio standing in the hallway. He'd been watching through a security monitor mounted discreetly near the door.
He spoke, Antonio said.
Not a question. A statement of something he'd seen but couldn't quite believe. 3 sentences. That's 3 more than anyone else has gotten. Antonio studied her. His expression was different, softer somehow. You'll come back Thursday? Yes. Good. He started to walk away, then stopped. Clara? My son. He hasn't mentioned his mother without crying in 2 years. Whatever you're doing, don't stop. On the drive home, Clara's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from fear this time. From something else. She'd heard Luca's voice. Quiet and broken, but real. A child's voice carrying the weight of loss too heavy for small shoulders. And in that moment, she'd glimpsed the person still trapped inside the silence. A boy who remembered music, who corrected his mother's mistakes with love, who was still fighting to come back. Thursday suddenly felt too far away. 3 weeks changed everything. Clara's Tuesday and Thursday visits became the structure around which her life reorganized. Classes, coffee shop shifts, homework, all of it squeezed between sessions with Luca.
He was talking now.
Not much, but enough. That chord progression is lazy, he said during their 5th session, when Clara played a simplified version of a Rachmaninoff piece. His small voice was matter-of-fact, no hesitation. Excuse me? You're avoiding the difficult transition. Play it properly, or don't play it at all. His small chin lifted with stubborn determination. Clara had laughed, actually laughed, and played it correctly. When she finished, Luca had nodded once. Approval. She'd felt absurdly proud. By the 3rd week, he was sitting at the piano bench. Not playing, but close enough that Clara could feel the shift. He'd place his small hands on the keys sometimes, pressing so softly no sound came out. Like he was asking permission from the instrument itself. His legs dangled from the bench, feet not reaching the pedals. Why did you stop playing? Clara asked one evening, after they'd spent 20 minutes in comfortable silence. Luca's jaw tightened, such an adult expression on a child's face. What's the point of playing if she's not here to listen? Maybe she still is. Don't, his voice went sharp, older than his years. Don't give me that grief counselor nonsense.
She's dead. I know.
I was there, his small hands clenched into fists. Clara didn't push. She just played the next piece, something melancholy but not tragic. Schubert. After a long pause, Luca spoke again, softer. I used to play all the time. Before. Mama said I was special. His small fingers traced the piano keys. Then the bomb. I remember the sound more than anything. This high-pitched ringing, then nothing. When I woke up, everything was dark. Forever dark.
I'm sorry.
Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't bring back light. Sorry doesn't bring her back. He pulled his hands away from the piano. I can't play like I used to. I can't read music. Can't see the keys. So what's left? Clara chose her words carefully. Beethoven composed his 9th symphony completely deaf. Beethoven wasn't 10 and useless. Beethoven was human. Like you, she played a soft chord. And you're not useless. You have perfect pitch. You can hear mistakes I can't even catch. You knew that Rachmaninoff progression was wrong immediately. That's not useless. That's rare. That's gift. Luca didn't respond, but she saw his small shoulders relax slightly. That night, when Clara left, Antonio was waiting by her car. Not unusual anymore. He often appeared to ask about Luca's progress. But this time, 2 other men stood with him, both in suits, both watching her with cold assessment. Clara, this is Marco and Vincent. My associates. Antonio's tone was different. Businesslike. They'll be escorting you home from now on.
Why?
Precaution. You're part of this family's routine now. That makes you visible. He lit a cigarette. Some people watch my house. They notice patterns. New faces. I'd rather you stay safe. Clara's stomach dropped. Are you saying I'm in danger? I'm saying you're protected. There's a difference. Vincent opened her car door. They'll follow at a distance. You won't notice them after a while. But Clara did notice. Black SUVs trailing her to campus. Men in coffee shops who never ordered anything. Her classmates started asking questions she couldn't answer. Who are those guys? Her friend Jen asked after class one day. Just family friends. Family friends don't look like hired killers, Clara.
She didn't know what to say.
The truth was impossible to explain. The next Tuesday, Clara arrived to find the music room rearranged. The piano bench had a cushion now, child-sized, so Luca could sit properly. Sheet music, Braille sheet music, sat on the stand. Luca stood beside the piano, one small hand resting on it. I want to try, he said without preamble. His voice was determined but scared. Try what?
Playing.
Making music again. Something. His voice carried frustration beyond his ears. I can't keep sitting here just listening to you. It's driving me crazy. I need to do something. Clara felt a surge of hope.
Okay.
What do you want to play? I don't know. That's the problem. I can't see the keys. Can't remember where anything is anymore. It's been too long. Then we'll start simple. Clara sat beside him on the bench. She had to adjust her position because the cushion made him higher than her now. She took his small right hand gently. Middle C, remember? She pressed his finger to the key. He played it.
Once. Twice.
His small finger barely had the strength at first. Now, D, she guided him. They worked through a single octave like that, Clara guiding, Luca playing. His muscle memory started returning. His small hands remembered even if his mind had forgotten. By the end of the hour, he could find the notes himself. Again, he kept saying, his child's voice intense with focus. I need to do it again. When Maria came to announce dinner, Luca shook his head.
Not yet.
Please, Miss Maria. 5 more minutes. Antonio appeared in the doorway. He didn't interrupt. Just watched his son, really watched him, play notes on a piano for the first time in 2 years. His small boy, fighting so hard to come back. When Clara finally stood to leave, exhausted, Luca caught her wrist. His grip was tentative but deliberate. His hand was so small. Tomorrow, he said. Can you come tomorrow? Not Thursday. Tomorrow. Clara glanced at Antonio, who nodded once. There was moisture in his eyes. Tomorrow, she agreed. Outside, Vincent was waiting by her car. Boss says you need a phone. Secure line. He handed her a new cell phone. Only 3 numbers programmed. Antonio, the mansion, and emergency services. Something feels wrong about this, Clara said. Vincent's expression didn't change. Everything about this is wrong, miss. But you're helping that kid. He smiles now. Did you know that? First time in 2 years, Maria saw him smile yesterday.
So you're in it now.
Might as well have a lifeline. As Clara drove home, black SUV following 3 cars behind, she realized Vincent was right. She wasn't just teaching piano anymore. She was helping a broken child heal. She was inside the Rossi family. Inside their world. Inside the target painted on their backs. And somewhere between the fear and impossibility of it all, she'd started to care about the small boy who was finally learning to play again. That terrified her most of all. Absolutely not. Antonio's voice was final. Clara had expected resistance, but not this much. It's just a small recital, she pressed. Community center. Maybe 40 people. Students' families. Nothing big. You want to take my son, my blind son, a child, out in public to listen to amateur piano players? Antonio set down his espresso. Give me one good reason. Because he asked me to. That stopped Antonio cold. Behind him, through the study's open door, Luca was practicing scales in the music room. Hesitant notes, but consistent. Every day his small hands played a little more. He's been working on something, Clara continued. A simple piece he's composing. He wants to hear how other people interpret music. Wants to Feel normal for one night. He told me yesterday. He said he wants to remember what it's like to just be a kid who likes music. Antonio's jaw worked. The Mafia boss wrestling with a father. 1 hour, he finally said. Vincent and Marco go with you. You sit in back. First sign of trouble, you leave. And Clara, he's 10 years old. You don't let him out of your sight. Clara exhaled. Thank you. Don't thank me. If anything happens to him, I know. I disappear. The community center was shabby compared to Rossi's world. Folding chairs, fluorescent lights, an upright piano that needed tuning. But when Clara and Luca arrived, Vincent and Marco flanking them like shadows, she saw Luca's posture change. He tilted his small head, listening. Children laughing. Someone warming up backstage. The casual chaos of normal life. How many people? He asked quietly, his small hand gripping Clara's. Maybe 30. Families mostly. Students from the university. Some kids your age. Are they looking at me? Clara glanced around. A few curious stares at the dark glasses, the obvious security detail, the small boy holding an adult woman's hand so tightly. But mostly people were focused on their programs, their phones, their own nerves.
Some.
But not the way you think. They'd just see a kid. They sat in the back row. Luca's small legs swung slightly, not reaching the floor. His hand found the chair arm, gripping it tight. Vincent positioned himself 3 seats away, eyes scanning the room constantly. The recital began. A 10-year-old girl butchered Chopin. A college student played Gershwin competently, but without feeling. An older woman performed Debussy, with more passion than precision. And Luca listened to every note, his small face turned toward the stage with complete attention. After the 4th performer, Clara heard him whisper. The girl, the first one, she has the tempo right in her head. Her hands just can't keep up yet. You could hear that. Her breathing. She was anticipating the changes before her fingers got there. He paused. She'll be good someday. If she doesn't give up, someone should tell her. That's very kind of you to notice. During a particularly off-key rendition of For Elise, Luca did something unexpected.
He laughed.
A child's laugh, genuine and surprised. Clara stared at him. What? He's playing it like a march. It's supposed to be gentle. Light. Luca's small lips curved, a real smile. Mama would have covered her ears and made a funny face. Clara felt her chest tighten. This was the first time Luca had mentioned his mother with lightness in his voice. Just memory. Simple and bittersweet. A child remembering his mother's silliness, not just her absence. During intermission, a young boy, maybe 8, approached them. His mother tried to stop him, but he was already standing in front of Luca. Why are you wearing sunglasses inside? The boy asked. His mother gasped. Tommy, that's rude. But Luca held up a small hand.
I'm blind.
The glasses help people remember not to wave at me. And bright lights hurt, even though I can't see them. Tommy considered this. That's weird. But okay. Can you play piano? I'm learning again. I used to be really good, but I had an accident. Me too. Learning, I mean. Not the accident part. I'm learning. Mary had a little lamb. What are you learning? Luca's expression softened. Something harder. But I'll get there.
Cool.
Maybe we can play together sometime. Tommy grinned and ran back to his mother, who mouthed an apology. Clara saw Luca's small shoulders relax completely for the first time.
That wasn't so bad, she said.
No, Luca admitted, a tiny smile still on his face. He was nice. He didn't act weird. The second half began. A teenager performed an original composition, rough but heartfelt. When she finished, the audience applauded politely. But Luca leaned toward Clara, his small voice excited. The 3rd movement. Did you hear it? The way she shifted from major to minor? I heard it. That's what I want to do. Capture that feeling. The shift from light to dark, his small fingers tapped against his knee, not nervous, but excited. Can we try that tomorrow? In my piece. Clara smiled.
Yes.
Absolutely yes. But as the final performer took the stage, Vincent's hand suddenly touched her shoulder. His voice was low, urgent. We need to leave.
Now.
Clara's heart jumped.
What? Why?
Don't ask questions. Get the kid up quietly. She turned to Luca, keeping her voice steady. We should go. You wanted to beat the crowd, remember? Luca frowned, his small face confused. But it's not over. I know, sweetie. But we need to go now. Clara took his hand. Marco moved ahead, clearing a path to the side exit. Vincent stayed behind them, one hand inside his jacket. Luca's small hand squeezed Clara's tightly. Something's wrong, he whispered. I can hear it in everyone's voices. Outside, the black SUV was already running. Vincent practically lifted Luca inside, Clara scrambling in after him. What's happening? Luca asked, his small voice tight with fear. Clara? Just a precaution, Vincent said, but his hand never left his concealed weapon. As they pulled away, Clara looked back. Two men in dark coats were entering the community center, scanning the crowd. One of them locked eyes with Vincent through the window. Then they were gone, speeding into the night. Luca sat rigid beside her, his small body trembling. Someone was there. Someone looking for me. Like before. Like the bomb. Clara wanted to lie, but Luca would hear the deception in her voice. I don't know. Maybe. This is why Papa never lets me leave. This is why I'm a prisoner, his small hands clenched into fists. Even 1 hour of normal, I can't even have that. I'm 10, and I can't even go outside. Clara reached for his hand, without thinking. You're not a prisoner. You're protected. There's a difference. Is there? His small voice broke. It doesn't feel different. She didn't have an answer that would satisfy a frightened child. Back at the mansion, Antonio was waiting. His face was carved from stone. When he saw them, he immediately knelt down to Luca's level, checking him over. You okay, son?
I'm fine, Papa.
We left before anything happened. Antonio stood, his expression dark. The Salvatores. They've been asking questions about Clara. About the routine. He looked at his son. This ends now. No more outings. No more risks. No, Luca said, his small voice firm. Everyone turned. No. Antonio's voice was dangerous. I'm not living in fear anymore. I'm not hiding. Luca's small chin lifted with a courage that seemed too big for his body. For the first time in 2 years, I want to play music again. I want to exist. I made a friend tonight, Papa.
Tommy.
He was nice to me. You can't take that away. Not even you. Father and son faced each other. Antonio towering over his small, blind son. An impasse. Finally, Antonio's expression cracked. Just slightly. He knelt down again, taking Luca's small shoulders gently. You're 10 years old. It's my job to keep you safe. I know. But Mama wouldn't want me to just hide forever, Luca's voice wavered. She'd want me to be brave. She was always brave. Antonio pulled his son into a tight embrace. Clara saw his eyes close, saw the pain on his face. We'll discuss this tomorrow, he said quietly into Luca's hair. When I'm less angry. When I've handled the Salvatores. The weight of those last words hung in the air. Maria appeared to take Luca to bed. As the small boy was led away, he turned back. Clara? You'll come back, right? Even if Papa says no more trips? I'll come back, Clara promised. Always. As Clara left that night, her hands were shaking. She'd seen Luca laugh. Seen him excited about music. Seen him defend his right to live. Seen him act like a child should, making friends, enjoying a recital. But she'd also seen the shadows closing in. And she had no idea how much time they had left. Clara didn't hear from the Rossis for 3 days. No calls. No cars waiting outside her apartment. The secure phone stayed silent. On the 4th day, Vincent appeared outside her morning class. Get in the car. What happened? Is Luca?
He's fine.
Your presence is requested.
Now.
The drive was tense. Vincent's jaw was tight and Marco, usually stoic, kept checking his phone with increasing agitation. When they arrived at the mansion, it looked like a war zone preparing for battle. Twice as many guards. Men checking cars at the gate. Someone installing additional cameras. Maria met Clara at the door, her usual composure cracked. Thank God you're here. He won't eat. Won't sleep. Just sits at the piano playing the same 8 bars over and over. Clara heard it before she saw him. Discordant notes, angry and repetitive. She found Luca in the music room, his small body hunched over the keys, attacking them like they'd personally wronged him.
Luca.
He didn't stop. Didn't acknowledge her. Luca, it's Clara. I know who you are, his small voice was raw. 3 days. You disappeared for 3 days. Your father didn't call me. Because he's been busy, Luca's small hands crashed down on the keys. Busy making people disappear. Busy proving he's still the most dangerous man in Chicago. Busy reminding me that everything I touch turns to blood. Clara approached slowly. What happened? The Salvatores sent a message. A threat. So my father sent one back. Luca's small voice broke. Do you know what that means in his world? It means bodies. It means war. It means more people are going to die because of us. He stopped, breathing hard. Clara sat beside him on the bench. Your father is protecting you. Is he? Or is he protecting his legacy? His heir? Luca's laugh was bitter, too old for a child. Sometimes I can't tell if he loves me, or just loves what I'm supposed to become. The next Rossi boss. He loves you. I've seen it. Then why won't he let me be normal? Why can't I just be a kid? His small voice cracked. I'm 10 years old, and I can't even go outside without people trying to hurt me. Before Clara could answer, the door burst open. Antonio strode in, phone in hand, fury radiating from every step. We have a problem. Vincent appeared behind him. Sir, maybe we should. She needs to know. Antonio turned to Clara. The Salvatores know your schedule. They know you leave here every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:30 p.m. They've been following you for weeks. Clara's blood turned to ice. Why? Because you're the only outsider who comes here regularly. They think you're leverage. Antonio's expression was stone. They tried to grab you tonight. Vincent intercepted them 2 blocks from your apartment. The room spun. What? You're staying here. Both of you. No more trips. No more exposure until this is finished. No. Luca stood abruptly from the piano bench, his small frame shaking. You don't get to lock her up too. I'm keeping you both alive. By making us prisoners? By turning everything into a cage. Luca's small voice cracked with emotion. Mama died because of your world. I lost my eyes because of your world. And now Clara's in danger because of your world. When does it end, Papa? When? The silence was suffocating. Antonio's voice dropped to something dangerous. It ends when I say it ends. When the Salvatores are no longer a threat. When? An explosion shattered the windows. Clara hit the floor as glass rained down. Strong hands, Vincent's, dragged her behind the piano. Gunfire erupted outside. Shouting. The sharp crack of bullets against stone.
Luca.
Antonio's voice, raw with terror. Papa. I'm here. Luca's small voice was somewhere to Clara's left, disoriented, panicking. Clara crawled toward his voice, glass cutting her palms. She found him pressed against the wall, his small body curled up, hands over his ears, shaking violently. Luca, it's me. It's Clara. She grabbed his small hand. We need to move. Can you follow my voice? I can't. I don't know where the sounds. His small voice was terrified, the 10-year-old child completely overwhelmed. More gunfire. Closer now. Clara made a split-second decision. She started humming, loud enough for Luca to hear over the chaos. The lullaby. Their lullaby. His mother's lullaby. Luca's small fingers found hers and gripped tight. Left, she whispered, pulling him. 3 steps. Now right. There's a doorway. You're doing so good, sweetie. She guided him through the music room door into the hallway, humming directions like she'd once hummed melodies. Vincent and Marco flanked them, weapons drawn, clearing corners. Behind them, Antonio was shouting orders, coordinating the defense. They reached a panic room, steel door, keypad entry. Vincent punched in a code and shoved them inside. Stay here. Don't open this door for anyone but me or the boss. The door slammed. Locked. Sealed. Clara and Luca were alone in the silence. Her humming stopped. The reality crashed down. Luca was still gripping her hand like a lifeline, his small body shaking uncontrollably. His breathing was ragged, panicked. The sound, the explosions, it's just like when Mama... I know, baby. I know, Clara pulled him into her arms, and he buried his small face against her shoulder. But we're safe. We're okay.
Papa
is doing what he does. He'll be fine. Luca sobbed against her shoulder, the first time she'd heard him cry.
I'm scared.
I'm so scared. Me too. But we're together. You're safe with me. They sat in the darkness, though darkness meant nothing to Luca. Minutes crawled by. The sounds of gunfire faded, then stopped. Luca's small body gradually stopped shaking, but he didn't let go of Clara. You guided me, Luca finally said, his voice small and exhausted. With the song. That was smart. You followed. That was brave. I was terrified. So was I. Luca's small hand stayed in hers. Clara? Thank you. For not leaving. For staying when everything went insane. For protecting me. Where would I go? She tried to sound light, but her voice shook. Anywhere. Anywhere but here. Anywhere safe. His small voice was sad. You should leave. This isn't your fight. You're wrong. It is my fight now. Clara squeezed his small hand. Because I care about you. And that makes it my fight. The lock clicked. The door opened. Antonio stood there, blood on his suit sleeve, a cut on his forehead, exhaustion in his eyes. It's over. For now, he looked at his son. You're right. This has to end. I'm handling it. Permanently. Luca stood, not releasing Clara's hand. What does that mean? It means I'm calling a meeting. The families. We're settling this the old way. Antonio's expression was grim. 2 weeks. There's a charity gala at the restaurant. Everyone will be there. Neutral ground. We'll either make peace or make war. He looked at Clara. And you'll play piano. Just like the first night. We show them we're not hiding. We're not afraid. Clara's voice was barely a whisper. You want to use us as bait. I want to use you as proof that we're still standing. That they didn't break us. Antonio's voice softened. But I understand if you want out. Say the word. I'll pay you what you're owed, and you'll never see us again. You'll be safe. Clara looked at Luca. At the small boy who'd been silent for 2 years. Who'd learned to play again. Who'd laughed at a recital. Who'd just survived an attack while following her voice through chaos. Whose small hand still gripped hers. I'll play, she said. Antonio nodded once. Respect in his eyes. As he left, Luca tugged Clara's hand. You don't have to do this. You could leave. Be safe. Yes, Clara said quietly, kneeling to his level. I do have to. Because you're not just a job anymore, Luca. You're family to me. His small face turned toward her, and behind the dark glasses, she knew he was crying again. But this time, maybe, with something like hope. Because somewhere between the music and the danger and the impossible bond they'd formed, she'd stopped being just the piano teacher. She'd become something far more important. She'd become the person a broken child trusted to keep him safe. The restaurant had never looked more beautiful or more dangerous. Crystal chandeliers threw fractured light across tables filled with Chicago's most powerful crime families. The Salvatores sat on the east side, the Chens on the west. Neutral families scattered between them like human buffers. Everyone was armed. Everyone was watching. Clara's hands trembled as she adjusted her dress. Deep blue, expensive, chosen by Antonio's stylist. She looked like she belonged in this world. She didn't. "You don't have to do this," Luca said beside her in the private room. He wore a tailored suit sized perfectly for his small frame, dark glasses replaced with clear ones that showed his unseeing eyes. Antonio's idea, no more hiding. "We've been over this." Clara knelt down to his level, adjusting his tie. "I play. You listen. We show them you're not afraid." "I am afraid," Luca's small voice was honest. "What if something happens? What if they hurt you? Or Papa? Then your father will handle it. That's what tonight is for." She paused. "But Luca? I need you to trust me. If something feels wrong, if I change the song, you follow my lead." "Okay." Luca frowned, his small face worried. "What are you planning?" "Insurance." Before he could ask more, Antonio appeared. He knelt down, taking his son's small shoulders. "You ready, son?"
No.
"But I'll do it anyway." Antonio smiled, proud and pained. "That's my boy. That's your mother's courage." He stood. "It's time." The main dining room fell silent as they entered. Clara felt every eye track their movement, predators assessing prey. She kept her hand on Luca's small shoulder, guiding him. Luca walked with careful dignity, his small face composed despite the fear she knew he felt. Antonio sat Luca at his usual corner table, positioning himself between his son and the room like a human shield. Vincent and Marco flanked them. Clara counted at least 15 other Rossi men scattered throughout. The Salvatores had brought similar numbers. One wrong move, and this became a massacre, with a child in the middle of it. Clara sat at the piano, the same piano as that first night. Full circle. She began with Chopin, safe, classical, expected. The room relaxed marginally. Conversations resumed in hushed tones. Business was being discussed. Deals were being made. Clara played 3 pieces. Luca sat motionless, his small hands folded on the table, listening with complete attention. Then she saw him, a Salvatore associate, young and nervous, moving toward the kitchen entrance, his hand inside his jacket. Vincent saw him too, starting to move. Clara's hands crashed into a jarring chord.
Wrong.
Completely wrong. Every head turned. She shifted immediately into the lullaby. Their lullaby, loud and deliberate. Luca's small head snapped up. Clara saw the moment he understood. His small body tensed. Then Luca stood. Antonio's hand shot out. "Son, sit down." But Luca walked forward, one small hand trailing the wall, moving toward the piano with practiced steps. The entire room watched, transfixed by the sight of a small blind child walking through a room full of killers. He reached the piano bench. Clara helped him up. He was still so small, even with the cushion. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Trusting you." His small hands found the keys. "Now what?" Clara's mind raced. The Salvatore associate had frozen, confused by the attention. Vincent was closing in. Everyone was watching the child at the piano. "Play with me," Clara whispered. "Just follow." She started the melody again, softer. Luca's small fingers joined hers, hesitant at first, then stronger. They played together, their 4 hands creating something neither could alone. His small hands moved with growing confidence, muscle memory taking over. The room was utterly silent. Antonio stood slowly, and Clara's heart stopped. But he wasn't angry. His eyes were fixed on his son, the son who hadn't played piano in public since his mother died. The small boy who was playing now, in front of Chicago's most dangerous men, completely vulnerable. The Salvatore associate backed away, his moment lost. Vincent intercepted him quietly at the kitchen door. Clara and Luca finished the piece. The final note hung in the air. Luca's small hands lifted from the keys, and he turned his face toward where he knew his father stood. Then something unexpected happened. Antonio began to clap. Slow, deliberate, his eyes never leaving his son. Other families joined, even the Salvatores, because in that moment, this wasn't about territory or power or revenge. It was about a father watching his son come back from the dead. About a child showing courage that shamed grown men. An older man, silver-haired, commanding, stood from the Salvatore table. Giovanni Salvatore himself. "Antonio," he said, voice carrying. "Your son has courage. Playing while blind in a room full of enemies. That takes strength. Real strength." "He has his mother's courage," Antonio replied, voice tight with emotion. Giovanni nodded slowly. "Teresa was a good woman. Her death was regrettable. Collateral damage is always regrettable." The temperature in the room dropped. Antonio's hand moved toward his jacket. But Luca spoke first. His small voice, clear in the silence. "Then let her death mean something." Everyone turned to stare at the small blind boy, at the piano. "I can't see you," Luca continued, his voice steady despite his size. "Any of you. I don't know who's Rossi or Salvatore or Chin. I just hear voices. Fear. Anger. Pride." He paused. "My mama died because someone planted a bomb meant for my papa. And my papa will kill someone to avenge her. And then someone will kill to avenge that death. When does it end?" "Luca." Antonio's voice carried a warning. "No, Papa." Luca's small voice was firm. "I'm blind because of this war. I lost 2 years of my life because of this war. I don't have Mama because of this war." His small hands pressed against the piano keys. "If her death, if my eyes, if any of it means anything, let it end tonight. Please. I'm 10 years old, and I'm tired of being scared." The silence was absolute. A child's plea, simple and devastating. Giovanni Salvatore studied Luca for a long moment. Then he looked at Antonio. "Your son speaks truth. This war has cost all of us. Children shouldn't have to pay for their father's choices." He glanced around the room. "Perhaps it's time for new terms. New peace." Antonio's jaw worked. The boss warring with the father. Finally, new terms. Neutral territories. Reparations. He met Giovanni's eyes. "And guaranteed safety for my family. All of them." His gaze flickered to Clara. She was family now. Officially. Giovanni extended his hand across the space between tables. "Agreed. For the children. So they don't have to live in our shadows." Antonio shook it. The room exhaled collectively. But as Giovanni turned away, Clara saw it. The micro-expression. The cold calculation behind his eyes. This wasn't peace. This was a strategic retreat. The war wasn't over. It was just changing form. As the families began to leave, exchanging careful nods and hollow promises, Luca found Clara's hand. "Did it work?" he whispered. "Is it over?" Clara looked at Antonio, who was watching the Salvatores depart with the eyes of a man who knew better than to trust a handshake. "For tonight," she said quietly. Luca's small hand squeezed hers. "But not forever."
No, sweetie.
"Probably not forever." "Then we'll just have to be ready." His small voice was sad but accepting. "That's what Mama would say. Be ready, but keep living anyway." Clara pulled him into a hug. This small, brave child who just faced down a room full of killers with nothing but honesty and music. "Your mama was very wise," Clara whispered. "I know," Luca said into her shoulder. "I miss her every day." Because she'd learned something in these weeks with the Rossis. In their world, peace was just another word for the silence between bullets. And the silence never lasted long. But maybe, just maybe, they'd bought themselves some time. Time for a small boy to heal. Time for music to work its magic. Time for a child to just be a child, at least for a little while longer. The mansion felt different in the morning light. Clara arrived 3 days after the gala to find the gates less fortified. Still guarded, but the tension had eased. Inside, Maria was humming, actually humming, as she arranged flowers in the entry hall. "He's been waiting for you," Maria said with something close to a smile. "Been at the piano since dawn. Won't even eat breakfast until you get here." Clara found Luca in the music room, but the scene stopped her in the doorway. He wasn't just sitting at the piano. He was composing, his small fingers moving across the keys with growing confidence, occasionally stopping to tap notes on Braille sheet music beside him with a special stylus Maria had taught him to use. He was writing something down, preserving it, planning to play it again. "You're early," Lucas said without turning around, a small smile on his face. "You knew it was me. Your footsteps. You walk softer than Miss Maria. Faster than Papa." He played a gentle chord. "Also, you're the only one who stops in the doorway like you're afraid to interrupt." Clara sat beside him on the bench. "What are you working on?" "Something for her. For Mama." His small voice was steady now, not broken. "I couldn't play after she died, because every note felt like losing her again. But you showed me something." "What's that?" "Music isn't about holding on. It's about letting go. Letting the sound exist, and then releasing it into silence." He played a phrase. "Melancholy, but not tragic. Beautiful. She's in the silence between notes. I just had to learn to hear it." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "That's beautiful, Luca. So beautiful." "It's not finished. I need help with the bridge." The transition from grief to, he paused, his small face thoughtful. "Whatever comes after grief. Acceptance. Maybe. Or just living. Being okay again." His small fingers played a few experimental notes. "Will you help me?" "Always." They worked for an hour, trading melodies, building harmonies. Luca's composition was raw but genuine, a conversation between pain and hope. Clara added subtle variations, and Luca refined them with the precision of someone who heard every nuance. His small hands were getting stronger, more confident every day. Antonio appeared eventually, standing in the doorway just as Clara had. Watching his son play. Really play. Create something new. When they finished the session, Antonio gestured for Clara to follow him to his study. Lucas stayed at the piano, continuing to work, his small voice humming the melody. "He's different," Antonio said, pouring 2 glasses of scotch. "Lighter. Like a weight I couldn't see is lifted. He's healing. Children are resilient." "Because of you," Antonio slid an envelope across the desk. "Your payment. Plus un bonus." Clara opened it. "Far more than their original agreement." "I'm also offering you something else," Antonio continued.
A permanent position.
"Full-time music teacher for Luca. Salary, benefits, security. You'd be protected under the Rossi name. Officially. You could quit school, focus on this. Or continue school. We'd pay for it. Whatever you need." Clara stared at the envelope. Life-changing money. Safety. Everything she'd struggled for. "But," she asked, hearing the unspoken condition. "But you'd be part of this world. My world. There's no walking away once you're family." Antonio's eyes were serious. "The peace with the Salvatores is fragile. Giovanni's already testing boundaries. There will be more threats. More danger. You'd be choosing that life. And you'd be choosing to stay in a child's life. To be there for him as he grows up. That's a long commitment." Clara thought about the past months. The fear. The black SUVs. The attack on the mansion. But also, Luca's first words. His laugh at the recital. His small hands finally finding the piano again. The boy who'd been lost in silence learning to speak through music. The brave child who'd faced down a room full of killers with nothing but truth. "What does Luca want?" she asked. Antonio's expression softened completely. "He asked me this morning if you'd stay. Said you're the first person since his mother who sees him instead of his blindness. Who treats him like a kid, not a tragedy." His voice roughened. "He asked if you could be his family. If that was allowed." Clara's chest tightened. Her eyes filled with tears. "I have a counteroffer," she said slowly. "I'll stay. I'll teach him. I'll be there for him, for however long he needs me. But not as an employee. As his friend. His family. No contract.
No ownership.
I come because I choose to, and I leave if I need to. But I don't plan to leave." Antonio studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled, a real smile. warm and genuine. My son is very lucky. You have the courage to stand up to me, the courage to demand respect. That's exactly the kind of person he needs in his life. He raised his glass. Welcome to the family, Clara. The real 1 inch. They drank. The scotch burned, but Clara barely noticed. When she returned to the music room, Luca had started playing the completed section of his mother's piece. Clara stood in the doorway, listening. The melody spoke of loss, but also hope. Darkness, but also dawn. It was the sound of someone who'd been broken learning to be whole again. A child finding his way back to the light, one note at a time. Clara? Luca called without stopping, his small face turned toward the door. Are you staying? Really staying? She walked to the piano, sat beside him, and added a harmony line to his melody. Their hands moved together across the keys. Adult and child, teacher and student, family. I'm staying, she said. Luca's expression, the closest thing to peace she'd ever seen on his small face, was answer enough. He leaned against her slightly as they played, and Clara felt her heart swell with something fierce and protective. Outside, the world was still dangerous. Giovanni Salvatore was still plotting. Antonio was still a mafia boss with enemies who'd kill for weakness. The black SUVs would still follow her home. The threats would come again. But inside this room, something else existed. Something the violence couldn't quite touch. Music. Connection. Love. A small blind boy who'd learned to see through sound. A scared girl who'd found courage in unexpected places. And a father who'd rediscovered his son through the whisper of a lullaby. The piece ended. Luca's small hands lifted from the keys. Again, he asked, hope in his voice. Clara smiled, ruffling his dark hair. Again. As many times as you want. Forever? Forever. And in the silence between their notes, in the space where grief met healing and darkness met light, they played. The mansion, once a fortress of silence, filled with music and laughter and the sound of a child being a child again. Luca would have challenges ahead. The blindness would never go away. The trauma would surface sometimes. The dangerous world his father lived in would always cast shadows. But he wouldn't face any of it alone. He had his father's fierce protection, Maria's steady care, Vincent and Marco's silent guardianship. And he had Clara, who'd walked into a mafia boss's restaurant terrified and desperate, and walked out having found a family she never expected. A small boy who needed her, who'd trusted her, who'd shown her that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was playing piano in a room full of enemies. It was humming a lullaby in the darkness. It was choosing to live even when the world tried to make you hide. For the first time in 2 years, the Rossi mansion sounded like home. And that, Clara thought as Luca's small hands began the melody again, was worth every risk.